Prior to arriving in Bogotá, I really had no idea what to expect. But I have to admit, I was rather surprised to discover upscale shopping malls, trendy neighborhoods, and gourmet cuisine. At the same time, I also didn't expect to see vendors on the side of the road selling fire extinguishers. Because, you know, sometimes cars catch on fire while they're stuck in traffic. In this video, we're going to take you on a tour of Bogotá's wildly different neighborhoods, from the charming Old World Historic Center known as La Candelaria, all the way over to the hipster mecca of El Chapinero. We'll visit the sanctuary of Monserrate, located over 10,000 feet above sea level, and go deep underground to see a massive cathedral carved into the tunnels of a salt mine. After watching this video, you'll be more ready than ever to visit this bustling Andean metropolis.
The red light is on, yes.
I love the BBC.
This lovable guy is Justin, and I'm Daniel. And together we're going to be your guides as we explore the capital city of Colombia. Located high in the Andean mountains, this is Bogotá. With a population of just over 12 million people and sitting at an elevation of 8,600 feet or 2,600 meters, Bogotá is by far the most populous city at such an extreme altitude. If you're not accustomed to high elevation, be prepared for the very real possibility of experiencing altitude sickness for a couple days while your body acclimates. In the northwest of the city, you'll find Bogotá's International Airport, and to the east of the city is the massive mountain known as Monserrate, which towers over Bogotá and reaches an even greater altitude of 10,000 feet. At the foot of Monserrate are some of Bogotá's most popular neighborhoods, including the foodie neighborhood of Usaquén, upscale El Chico, and historic La Candelaria. In the center of Bogotá is our first destination, a vast urban park known as el Parque Simón Bolívar, which serves as a quiet retreat from the bustling city that surrounds it. With over 11 miles of pedestrian pathways and a staggering 970 acres of green space, Bolivar Park is even larger than Central Park in New York. Construction on the park began in 1966 with the goal of creating a lung of the city, a central forest that could absorb pollution and breathe life into Bogotá. The park is dedicated to an important independence leader by the name of Simón Bolivar. This is a guy who's worth knowing something about because you are going to see his name everywhere in Bogotá. So what exactly did he do to earn all this fame? Well, Bolivar was born to one of the wealthiest and most influential families in Venezuela at the end of the 18th century. At this time, Venezuela was under Spanish rule, and you might expect that everyone was really eager for independence, but this just really wasn't the case. Venezuelans, or at least Venezuela's elites, were quite content to be subjects of the Spanish crown. But everything changed when a little guy by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Spain in 1808 and sequestered the Spanish royal family. You see, Venezuelan Creoles abhorred the idea of being ruled by Napoleon, and Bolivar began convincing them that the time had come to revolt and form their own government. After achieving victory in the war for Venezuela's independence, Bolivar then led campaigns to liberate the neighboring countries of New Granada, Panama, and Ecuador, which were then merged together with Venezuela into the Republic of Gran Colombia. Bolivar was elected Colombia's first president, and Bogotá was chosen as its capital city. We can get a glimpse of how Bogotá looked in Bolivar's time by visiting a neighborhood known as La Candelaria. This is Bogotá's Old Town, and it's home to a number of must-see destinations including the Gold Museum, the Botero Museum, and the historic town square known as, you guessed it, Bolivar Square. Previously known as Constitution Square, a statue honoring Simón Bolivar was erected here in 1821, and the square was then rededicated in his honor. Surrounding the square are multiple important buildings, including the primary cathedral of Bogotá, the national capital, and the Palace of Justice. Kind of sounds like the Legion of Doom, doesn't it? The square is constantly brimming with energy and packed with tourists, vendors, and pigeons. Lots and lots of pigeons. An excellent way to explore La Candelaria is to do what we did and sign up for a free walking tour from Gran Colombia Tours. I'll drop a link in the description below. While tips are expected, there's otherwise no cost to join one of these tours, and I'd highly recommend it. We met our guide nearby at El Chorro de Quevedo. This unassuming fountain signifies the location where Spanish conquistador Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada first established the foundations of Bogotá in 1538. From there, our guide took us through the cobblestone streets of La Candelaria over to a market known as La Concordia. Here we had an opportunity to sample a variety of local fruits and delicious empanadas. Next, we stopped in at El Parque de los Periodistas, the Journalist Park, which is dedicated to a Nobel Prize-winning Colombian journalist and author known as Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Confusingly, however, the monument at the center has nothing to do with Marquez or journalism at all for that matter. This is known as the Temple of the Liberator, and the statue inside is none other than Simón Bolivar. Like I said, he's kind of a big deal here. Now, one thing that really stands out as you wander the streets of La Candelaria is the graffiti. Some of this graffiti is truly terrible juvenile vandalism, but there are also some incredible works of art. I'm not sure I've experienced a place like this anywhere else in the world. The old world colonial architecture is such a bizarre canvas for these vibrant murals. You look to one side of the street and you feel like you're in Barcelona. You look to the other and you might think you're in Baltimore. Really unusual. The walking tour lasted about 3 hours, and while we didn't get to see everything La Candelaria has to offer, it provided a great general orientation to the neighborhood. One thing we learned about on the walking tour was the Botero Museum, and this is really worth visiting. Fernando Botero is one of Colombia's most famous artists. He pioneered a rather unusual style known as boterismo, in which subjects are depicted in exaggerated form. In the year 2000, Botero donated hundreds of his works to the Botero Museum in Bogotá. The Botero Museum also features work from other Colombian artists and European artists. Your ticket to the Botero Museum also gets you access to the Bank of the Republic next door, which was absolutely fascinating. I highly recommend this. The exhibits here explore the history of the Colombian peso, which has been Colombia's currency since 1837. Early on, Colombia used 10-cent and 50-cent coins, as well as banknotes in denominations of between 1 and 100 pesos. This is almost laughable today. Rampant inflation has severely devalued the Colombian peso, and these days one of the smallest bills you'll see in circulation is a 2,000 peso note. 2,000 pesos, by the way, is about 42 US cents. Now let's hop over to one more must-see destination in Bogotá, the Gold Museum. The Gold Museum receives over 500,000 visitors every year, and for good reason. It features the largest collection of pre-Hispanic gold work in the world, with more than 34,000 gold artifacts on exhibit. One of the most famous pieces on display here is the Muisca raft, which depicts a gold offering ceremony described in the legend of El Dorado. In this legend, a new Muisca chief was coated in gold dust and taken by raft to the center of a lake. He would dive into the lake, washing the gold off, and emerge reborn as El Rey Dorado, the Golden King. Stories like this made their way back to the Old World and inspired conquistadors to descend upon the Americas in search of gold. Needless to say, gold has had a profound impact on Colombia, and I'd highly recommend the Gold Museum to anyone looking to learn more about the role this rare metal has played in the culture and history of the region. After a long day of exploring La Candelaria, we decided to stop in for a beer at the Bogotá Beer Company. There are multiple locations around Bogotá, and they have a variety of great options on tap, ranging from simple lagers all the way up to high-elevation IPAs. Speaking of high elevation, wow, how about that for a segue? It's hard to walk anywhere in Bogotá without noticing the towering mountain of Monserrate, and fortunately, it's pretty easy to get to the peak. Nearby to La Candelaria is the Monserrate Tramway and Funicular. A funicular is just kind of a train that goes up the side of a mountain. At the top there is a small church known as El Cerro de Monserrate. And of course there's an iconic Bogotá sign for getting those all-important pictures for the gram. We had an amazing time exploring Monserrate and taking in these great vistas. We wound up staying through sunset when some cloud cover unfortunately took away our view. Bogotá has a typical Andean mountain climate, so it's pretty normal for it to be cloudy in the late afternoon and early evening. For best views, I'd recommend going in the morning. Heading back down the mountain, let's check out another neighborhood known as El Chapinero. As you travel north from La Candelaria, there's a gradual shift in the architecture and feel of this city. The neighborhoods become more modern and more, well, gentrified. When you arrive in El Chapinero, for example, you'll notice right away that things are a little different. Instead of the narrow, winding cobblestone streets that dominate La Candelaria, El Chapinero has broad avenues lined with high-rises. It's generally quite clean, and the artwork feels more intentional and less guerrilla. But there is still a mix of old-world architecture scattered about. This neighborhood is sort of a transition between old and new. A fun find in El Chapinero was a restaurant called Takuma Cocina Show. Ever tried Colombian teppanyaki? Much to my surprise, this was one of the best teppanyaki experiences I think I've ever had. The food was excellent, and the show our hibachi chef put on was great. A unique thing here is that the hibachi grills are actually outdoors, so there's no need for those noisy fans. And they really love to go crazy with the fire here. Now, speaking of great restaurants, if you're a foodie, you absolutely have to check out El Parque de la 93, or 93rd Street Park. We kept coming back to this park and trying different restaurants. Whether you're looking for tacos, or Peruvian food, or Italian food, they have it all here. This place is a food lover's paradise. Next up, let's head over to one of the most unusual places I've ever visited, the Salt Cathedral of Zipaquirá. Now I'll warn you that this one is a bit of a drive away, but fortunately fire extinguishers are in plentiful supply if you happen to need one. The Salt Cathedral is exactly what it sounds like. It's a cathedral made out of salt. Entrance to the cathedral includes an audio guide, which is available in Spanish or English, and provides some much-needed orientation to this bizarre complex. The salt mine has actually been around since the 5th century, when the Muisca people began the initial excavation. At some point in the 1930s, miners began carving a small sanctuary into one wall of the mine, as a place to pray to the saints for protection while performing their rather dangerous jobs. The project gradually expanded, and in the 1990s a contest began to design a new salt cathedral. After you enter the mine, you first walk through 14 chapels, each representing one Station of the Cross. And then you enter the absolutely massive main altar. This was breathtaking. The Salt Cathedral was one of the most unusual man-made structures I've ever visited. That night over drinks, we reflected on our time in Bogotá. Is this a place we'd visit again? Is it one we'd recommend to others? And well, let me put it this way. We've been to a lot of places that were breathtaking. Places with incredible natural beauty or colossal ancient buildings. These are the kinds of places that photograph extremely well and tend to draw a lot of tourists for that reason. Bogotá, on the other hand, is, well, not that. There's graffiti and pigeons, and even their biggest churches are pretty tiny when compared to, well, the Vatican, for example. But what Bogotá lacks in photogenicity, it makes up for in pure vibe. This place is so fun to visit. The people here are friendly, the food is amazing, and the feeling you get when walking around is hard to explain. You just have to experience it for yourself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give us a like to help other viewers find content like this. And please be sure to subscribe to follow all of our upcoming travels. In the meantime, have you ever wanted to visit the floating city of Venice? Well then click here. Or maybe click on whatever happens to pop up in this little box over here. See you over there.